MMA Rants and Raves, The Ultimate Fighter Season 11, Episode 8, the wild card match, McRae versus Oscola. Guys, this is the most mysterious match of the entire season for a very simple reason. We really couldn't see the best of McRae because he was gassing out so much in the first match. We don't know the reason. It could be he was ill, maybe he was overtraining, or didn't get a night's rest. I mean, who knows? And then the other mystery, of course, is Oscola, because he got disqualified very early. So we really couldn't see what these fighters had to offer in the serious part of the competition when they had their fights. So this was going to be a mystery, very tough to call. And, of course, if you see that there's something wrong with McRae, you wouldn't think that he was going to fight well because of the cardio issue. But wow, you know, it was just a completely different type of fight than you would expect. So let's talk about it for a minute. Basically, at the beginning of the fight, you see that Oscola throws some kind of leg kick at McRae that seemed to really hurt him. He started to wince in pain, and then, of course, Oscola saw that, so he started to charge McRae, smelled blood, figured he could take him down, and that's not what happened. They actually grappled. McRae had him against the cage for most of that round, and he was throwing knees at him, and he was really taking it to him. And that's kind of interesting because the guy he fought before was a lot smaller. This was actually a bigger guy in Oscola, and he was able to manhandle him and control him against the cage. He has that ability, showed a little Roman Greco there. And then towards the end of the fight, when they're separated, the reason why they were separated is because he seemed to throw a groin knee. I think that's what it was, against Oscola, so they were separated. He got warned, or maybe a point taken. And that's the way the first round ended. Going to the second round, you see McRae coming out very aggressive. Gets a very decisive, hard takedown on Oscola. Then he throws the elbows, half guard, and then he gets Oscola's arm in a Kimura and submits him. So go figure. Interesting ending to that fight. McRae, totally different fighter, very well-rounded. I mean, he just showed it in this fight, something I didn't see in the first fight and couldn't tell. I mean, it's a guy who could wrestle well. He's a guy that has decent striking. He's got submission skills, Roman Greco, so that's pretty good. It was pretty interesting to see this guy fight. What I like about this episode that was different about the other episodes, we got two for the price of one. We got two fights in this episode. So basically, after that, they kind of bicker who's going to be fighting in the finals, and they decide it's going to be Ring against McGee, the rematch, because of what happened in that first controversial match that they had. But what happens is what everybody expected. Unfortunately, Ring's knee is messed up. He went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "You're taking a big risk by fighting again." So he decided not to fight again. So they get a replacement, once again, with all these injuries happening. So it's Hametry going up against McGee instead of Nick Ring. So let's talk about this fight. First round, you know, it was pretty close. You really couldn't tell. It was just basically Hametry's brawling style against McGee, who was trying to get some takedowns. It seemed that he had Hametry's back. Hametry really got out of that. It looked like he did it in a very experienced way, even though he was an unexperienced fighter. But then we see something totally different in the second round. You see Hametry coming out very aggressive, him going for a takedown. And then you see McGee catching Hametry in a headlock. And it just looked like he was controlling him. But then I said, wait a minute, he can't get out of this. And before you know it, you're seeing Hametry tap. I said, wow, it's a stand-up guillotine. That's a very tough thing to do. You don't have much leverage with a guy standing up against you. And he was able to get him into that guillotine. So this is a strong guy and a very technical guy, and he won that fight. So that's really interesting how that turned out. So basically after that, the episode ends shortly, and then you see something coming up next, which is what we already know. This was a spoiler that everybody knows already, that Ortiz is not going to be fighting against Liddell. And there's some kind of confrontation. So, I mean, even though it's a spoiler, I'm sure episode 9 should be interesting because we're going to be seeing other fights happening from all the last men that are standing. Looking forward towards episode 9. I would like to know what you thought about this episode and The Ultimate Fighter Season 11. Please leave your comments, rate this video, and subscribe. And thank you for tuning in.